Adar, Abhinandan, Abhar, Namaskar, and a very good evening to all dear participants. This is Arpita Srivastav Rai welcoming you all to this teaming tournament on public policy under Srijan Social Internship Program for students. Well, I would like to confess and appeal to all of you. Let's bring change in life of policy understanding and policy learning together with an intention of making tomorrow leaders with public policy understanding. Well, as you all know, that all public policy have the ultimate aim to fulfill certain goals that government has in mind. The reason for the formation and implementation of these policies is the welfare of the nation. So the government can use this public policy to portray and to implement government programs to achieve their goals. And now I would request my IT team to present a welcome video. Over to you, IT.
शुभं करोतु कल्याणं शुभं करोतु कल्याणं शुभं करोतु कल्याणं शुभं करोतु कल्याणं कल्याणं शुभं करोतु कल्याणम्.
Thanks, IT team, for that lovely video. Well, now I would like to start this session with a very interesting quote by Mr. Jake Julian when he said, "Public policy is a study in imperfection. It involves imperfect people with imperfect information facing deeply imperfect choices. So it's not surprising that they are getting imperfect results." And that's how, looking to this quote, you can understand the relevance and the importance of why we are over here together. Well, public policy process is a dynamic, continuous, complex, and interactive system through which public problems are identified and countered by creating new approaches or by reforming existing approach, I mean to say policy. So public policy is more how a government decision to handle a matter. And now, as you all know, that up till now, that what is the agenda of our creating this teaming tournament on public policy is, but then also I would like to present a brief introduction of the events that flow with this tournament. Well, as you know, the timeline, it is of a 45 days, 6 weeks, which is starting 16 to 31st July, is basically a tournament which is divided into 3 phases with the topic of orientation and induction, learn, apt, and engage, and assessment and reporting, which is actually spotlighting all the internship program with the focus on understanding all social issues and development sector, holistic development, capacity building, leadership skills, understanding teamwork, interpersonal skills, problem solving approach, and public speaking and confidence. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Ajay Prakash Ji, who is the president of the Deep Welfare Organization, for the inaugural speech. Over to you, Ajay Ji.
अजय जी, आप सुन पा रहे हैं? I think there might be an issue with Ajay ji. So by the time Arpita ji, you can proceed once he will join. Okay.
Certainly, certainly. Well, as it says, it goes. The way to get started is to quit talking and being doing. And that's how we all, the change makers, are doing it. So now I would love to invite the convener of the Atmanirbhar Bharat to give his point of view on the internship on public policy. Over to you, Pradeep ji.
Thank you. Thanks, Arpita ji, and thanks to all university students and university professionals, those who are here with us as an university coordinators. First of all, I thanks UPS Dehradun, then NMITD Mumbai, and of course, Avinash Lingam students. There are somewhere around 55 students, those who have opted for team building tournament, and some 14 students have opted for skill tracking, that is for Article C. They will be with us. They will be with us for these 45 days. And out of this, there are 3 students, those who have opted for research work. Those 3 students are from NMITD. So they are under Arsu Madam. So they will be working on research work. Not more, taking much time, of course, we have discussed on the orientation. Only thing, some of the points I would like to deliver here regarding the public policy is, whenever we talk about the public policy, it is the breakdown of the people and the public, and then the policy. So it means whatever the policy we are actually discussing on, or whatever the policies government is circulating, or whatever the geos are coming in, or whatever the schemes are actually for, it is for the people. And because of the people, these are being actually, for time to time, this has been implemented, or for time to time, it has been regularized. Some of the history, I must say, on the public policy, how this journey of the public policy learning in the schools have started. If I take the global scenario, in 1930, Princeton University have started, firstly, this public policy, with their, of course, program of, it's not, of course, at that particular time, it was called as a public policy. It was called as a leadership school, leadership course in regard to international relationships. That was how actually this has been started in 1930. Rolling over to, of course, if we see the history of Indian culture, the Kautilya era or the Chanakya era was there, wherein all the students keeps on going to Gurukul and they keep on learning about the policy. Going to backward those era up to this 2021, there is some gap in between. We have started public policy in India, of course, last, you can say, 6 to 8 years back, just with the school, which was this thing, Indian School of Public Policy. This is the oldest public policy school in India. Then Kautilya School of Public Leadership is there. Then Azim Premji is also actually taking some of the courses likewise. Even Rashtraam is also taking the courses on soon. And now we can see so many players are there in the public policy. So this is how, but I must say here, once we are talking about the Kautilya era, that Chanakya era, he keep on actually describing why this is being called as, suppose I take a simple example. I was watching one of the video, of course, and in that he was asking to Chandragupta why it has been called as Rajniti, and the very connecting answer for that particular question was, because it's been actually delivered by Raja. Whatever the policy is there, that is being delivered by Raja, and that mechanism is completely in and around the Raja only. That is why it is called as Rajniti. And this is how the policy started. You can very well judge from where actually it's been implemented, where it's been framed, where it's been actually worked in. So it's always the government bodies, Government of India's regulations, or state government's authority, which is actually taking care of public policy. Coming down to, of course, why we are into the internship and what we are doing in the internship, who all will be the beneficiaries. I have given the list of all those colleges. There are somewhere 80 students, those who are with us. But what they are going to benefit by this, they will be actually firstly, they will be getting to know about this public policy, what exactly it is, what is the framework, how those simplistic 23 policies, which are actually changing the lives of people, they can come to know. But there are the certain challenges, there are the certain impediments, there are the success stories also. So by learning those success stories, by learning those challenges, once they will actually join either the politics or the bureaucracy or even as an academician also, they can very well connect this learning, today's learning, that's 45 days learning, to their, of course, working structure, their work life, their workplace. They will very well connect these learnings, I must say. Coming down to, of course, once we are finalizing this 45 days tournament, I must say you can very well take it from here that you will be able to judge what is best or what is good in this, or what is to be neglected. What are the key takeaways whenever we discuss about any of the points, whenever we discuss about any of the issues, who all are the stakeholders, how to sit and how to negotiate on those things. You might be learning on these things because you will be going through the team tournament, and that is why I developed it in kind of team tournament, because then you will be working on a teams, either within the teams or within the university teams. This is thing. Okay, I'm targeting some of the HR roles, and these HR roles are working in either embassies or UNs or NGOs or education sector or government and PSU sector. Even some public policy consultants, they are working freelancely to the government bodies also. So this is, if you are into public policy, the career is there. These are the sectors where you can work in. And of course, importance I had given how this public policy will be imparting you. There are certain gray areas in public policy. It will be there because for each of the issue, there are certain gray area. And these gray area, I must say, still we are not about to know what is exactly the public policy framework is. Children don't know about the framework of this public policy is. Then how data is significant for making any policy to actually work in. Why the data analysis is important, or how this data is actually making us to take a decisions, how it is an enabler to us. We need to actually decide it all. Still, we are actually in a very recent state whether the data is being really we are using the data to decide anything, or still we are in the old era, that common theory which is actually working around for public policy. Thirdly is whenever we talk about the public policy, we need to work on the feedback mechanism. Whenever we talk about the feedback mechanism, it is yes, very well. I am saying that if the public policy has been rolled out, whether it's doing good or bad, we need to take care of this. There are the instances where several mitigation is going around, several litigation is there in and around our courts, that this is not actually beneficial for us. So we need to take the feedback mechanism, and we have to monitor those feedback mechanism rightly, actually, I must say. Then if the public policy is being rolled out, we need to decide whether it's being rolled, we need to roll out or roll back that particular policy. These all things we will be learning, but there is a certain framework on which we are deciding how to decide really that whether this being whatever the policy is being rolled out, how to take it back. There are the differences in between rolling out the policies and taking in the policies, rolling back the policies. So these are the instances we keep on actually interacting on those. Even in this 6 week of plan, I and Nitish have planned certain more things. I and Nitish will be working on some assignments wherein we are developing some SDG goals, and we are connecting SDG goals to the social development sector. And all the interns will be working on those assignments. If some of the mentors would like to actually join us, they can join us on those things also. Not taking much time. Whenever last thing, of course, because you people will be presenting, some of the mentors will be presenting here. Just take a note of what is the consideration point whenever we are actually presenting any of the policy. There are 5 to 6 consideration points. A larger framework is also there, which I will deliver later on in the weekends. But whenever we deliver on this public policy, try to think for whether the right particular policy to which goal area which actually they are actually targeting. What is the exact goal area of that particular policy? Whether really they are finding out to find the solution of the problem, or just they want to actually, I must say, doing a damage control to that particular system, or to they are trying to eliminate just the problem. They are not trying to actually eliminate the problem. They are trying to elevate the problem. Firstly, then what can be the cause area? Suppose I am doing this thing, what can be the repercussion of that? What can be the reactions of the people of those things? This we need to decide. So whenever you are presenting your things, whenever you are presenting your policies, please take a note of this, that this you have to think for. Then what are the tools of policies once you are presenting, whether it's been the incentives you are talking about, or whether you are talking about the persuasion of individuals, or you are talking about the information dissemination, how it is actually, what exactly that particular policy is saying about, whether it is talking about the policy which is more talking about the capacity building, or whether it's been talking about information dissemination. Coming to the target, we know being a social development sector, being a professionals, we always work in as per the targets. What are the target beneficiaries are? Who all the beneficiaries out of this? So we need to think for those things. Who all are the target beneficiaries out of our product, out of our this policy, and is these target beneficiaries are direct beneficiaries or indirect beneficiaries? That we have to align. And last but not the least, how we are going to implement that particular policy. Who all will be doing what all will be doing what, how it is to be done, how it is to be rolled back, and how it is to be actually disseminated towards people. This is what actually I need to share to all you, because you've been presenting your, of course, framework on those 23 policies. Meanwhile, I will be covering some of the framework in weekends also. I will be taking somewhere 5 sessions on this framework, and based on those framework, try to actually present your presentation. And our interns will learn those framework by your presentation. Suppose someone is missing out those framework, I will come in, or our team will come in and help you out that these are the frameworks which are being used in a presentation. So this is all from my side. I request Arpita ji to proceed, because I took somewhere around more than 10 minutes. I was allotted only for the 10 minutes, but the thing is like such, suppose something comes in for CSR or for public policy, I keep on talking. And that is how the things are. Request Arpita ji to please
It's
come in.
allowed. You being the convener, it's allowed.
Yeah, please.
Just on a lighter note. Thank you. Well, dear participant, let me tell you one thing. Turning ideas into action is the focus of the Atmanirbhar Bharat change makers on public policy leadership major. Students combine the study of public policy with the study of leadership qualities necessary to plan and implement successful policy. And that's how we have completed the entire event. The program focuses on understanding how public policy decisions are made, how civic leaders in government, non-profit organization, and the private sector contribute to collective problem solving. And now someone has very beautifully described the purpose of public policy. I would love to quote a quotation and a statement given by Mr. Guy Peters, where he defines public policy as the set of activities that government engage in for the purpose of changing their economy and society, effectively saying that public policy is legislation brought in with the aim of benefiting or impacting the electionists in some way. And I'm very delighted and proud to say that to throw light on this, we have a very distinguished guest with us who's going to mentor on this, on the role of legislation in public policy by Mr. Advocate Mr. Ramarao ji. I welcome on behalf of the ANB to Ramarao ji. Welcome, sir, on board with us. Well, before I call upon, I would like to give a brief introduction about him. Well, he's an advocate in chamber practice, certified CSR professional, grievance resolution council panel member, National Stock Exchange Goa Center, visiting faculty and a career counselor at ICAI Goa chapter, visiting faculty at NICMAR Goa campus, visiting faculty for orientation in management and communication skills training at the Institute of Chartered Accountant Goa chapter, empaneled as independent director in the database of Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Government of India, panel member of ROC Goa, DIU, Daman, CMR Surgical Goa for Internal Complaint Committee for PROSH, Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace. A guy who has hands-on experience, well, 20 years of wine experience in consultancy, teaching, CSR activities, counseling, and research. Not taking much of time, let me invite Advocate Ramarao ji. Over to you, Ramarao ji.
Yeah, good evening to all of you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
You are.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Good evening, Pradeep sir and Arpita madam. Great to be back with you all, and very nice to know so many new members. I'm very fortunate. Madam, I'll open up my presentation so that I won't swing around. And how much time do I have? Half an hour or 45 minutes?
45 minutes, I suppose.
Done, sir. Done. I have a galaxy of presentation to cover up the whole view. So, yeah, please guide me if I'm going through the presentations. Yeah, you can see my presentation?
Yeah.
It's visible, yeah. Good. Yes, at the outset, my profound gratitude to CSR, Pradeep Singh and Madam Arpita Srivastav Rai and the whole team for organizing such a wonderful session. And I thank you all for inviting me once again. Pleasure to be with you all. A great opportunity to see, hear and interact with all the eminent personalities. My greetings to the learned panelists and all the interns. Very glad to note the enthusiasm of the interns to learn and be guided by learned mentors. When knowledge, experience and wisdom gets transferred, that's how the legacy of great Indian diversified culture continues. That's what I feel very strongly. Such webinar sessions, discussions reaffirm our convictions towards the society and ourselves. In due course, we do enrich ourselves and learn to live in a community. This instills a sense of confidence and belonging. There is a sense of purpose in life, a sense of unconditional love and affection amongst ourselves. I would say pursuit for excellence in life should be the main purpose in our lives. Okay. I wish all the best to all the interns and the mentors into the journey of seeking knowledge and wisdom. Today's topic, my role, would be to enhance on the role of legislation in public policy. A very interesting topic of great relevance to all of us. The reason being, we are the proud citizens of one of the largest democratic countries on this planet. I will be mapping the two pivotal inputs, that is role of legislation and public policy, which are dynamic in nature and ever-ending in any democratic country. I would share with you all the bird's eye view of a very important document, which is the binding force for the democratic India, that is the Indian Constitution. I will narrate the basic principles, okay, underlining the Indian Constitution. Then I will go through the various public policies right from the year of independence, 1947 till date. I will go through the prominent public policies which shaped modern India. There are many such policies still evolving. Okay. I will also make a mention about the process of legislation, fundamental rights and duties, writs as constitutional remedies, and PIL, that is public interest litigations, which are the important reasons for legislations. We will also touch upon the federal form of governance in India. I will skim through some of the revolutionary approaches of public policy, legislation and governance of some states in India. I have sourced all my presentation from the known sources, which all of you are well aware, and it's very obvious. Okay, the whole topic is factual and nothing hypothetical. Public policy and subsequent legislation was happening, is happening, and will always happen. This consequence is dynamic and has a great impact in our lives. So that's my first, to begin with the first slide. I would go to the second one. the most important thing, I'll go to the legislation part of it, and the very pivotal document which binds that. That is the salient points of the Indian Constitution. Let me skim over. The reason being, I'm going through all this, in future when the intern take up some policy matters, so they should move to and fro so that the whole policy consolidates to an implementable legislation, because every policy that evolves becomes true only when it becomes a law. That is the fascinating part of public policy. If not, public policy remains as a guideline. So the Constitution. So what is Constitution? Constitution means to frame or to establish or to compose. The Oxford Dictionary means constitute means a system. So it is a set of fundamental rules according to which the government of a state functions. It is a document of rules and regulations guiding the administration of a state. It upholds the principles of all the citizens are equal before law. So framing of Indian Constitution. World War II came to an end on 9th May 1945. In July, a new government came into power in UK. 3 British cabinet members were set to find a solution to the question of Indian independence. The Constitution of India was drawn by the Constitutional Assembly, established in accordance with the Cabinet Mission Plan. Fine. So the pivotal question is evolution of freedom, and there is a public policy into determining the governing principles, and that is the reason how Indian Constitution comes into picture. So the draft Constitution was published in February 1948. 248 of the 299 members appended their signatures to the Constitution. Okay. Finally, the Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949 and came into effect on 26 January 1950. Fine. A form of a public outcry soon after we derived independence, rather freedom, and we need governing principles into a consolidated document. Okay. The drafting committee studied the constitutions of countries like France, Canada, USA, Switzerland, etc., and gathered the best features and adopted them. Yes. So we can say we reduced our time into further research because other countries already had experiences with their respective constitutions, and we derived the wonderful principles all around the world. So the Indian Constitution closely follows British parliamentary model, but differs from it very largely. In India, Constitution is supreme, not the parliament. So the Indian courts are vested with the authority to adjudicate on the constitutionality of any law passed by the parliament. So far, so good. Okay. So British Constitution, the parliamentary form of government, single citizenship, rule of law, institution of speaker, and his or her roles, law-making procedure, again derived from the British Constitution. We derived from US Constitution was constitutional emancipation of directive principles of state policy, DPSP, which I will highlight to some extent because that gives the baseline for other public policies. French Constitution, the idea and concept of liberty, equality, and fraternity. German Constitution, proclamation of emergency. Japanese and Chinese Constitution, the idea and concept of fundamental duties. Then Canadian Constitution, the quasi-federal form of government, a federal system with a strong central government, the concept of residual powers. Then Australian Constitution, the idea of concurrent list, freedom of trade and commerce within the country and between the states. Soviet Union Constitution, what we derived was the concept of planning commission and 5-year plan, which we have discontinued and taken over Niti Aayog. Okay. So just one sec. Fine. The Indian Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949 and came into force on January 26, 1950. Fine. Now, this is a comprehensive document consisting of 395 articles divided into 22 parts and 12 schedules. It's a binding force. Rather than law, legislation, it is a document which gives us the guideline principles. Okay. The Indian Constitution provides for 3 pillars. Legislature to enact laws, executive to implement the laws, constitutes the government machinery like civil services, etc., the bureaucracy. Okay. Then the third pillar is judiciary to interpret and enforce the laws and constitution. Any guesswork what could be the fourth pillar? Later I'll cover over. Okay. the schedules can be added to the constitution by amendment. Schedule means to list officially. Additional documents attached to a contract is generally known as schedule. A plan timetable drawn in advance is also known as a schedule. So we have 12 schedules in the Indian Constitution. So the first schedule is distinction of state and union territories. Then second one is emoluments for higher officials, allocation of the number of seats in Rajya Sabha per state or union territory. Then forms of oath and affirmation, that is the fourth schedule. Fifth schedule is provisions for
Ramarodi, are you there? Ramarodi, are you there?
Is an impetus for our public policy. Then 8th is the official languages, which is always a very big controversy. Then 9th is land reforms. Land reforms are very, very important in any democratic country. Then 10th schedule is the association of Sikkim with India. Then 11th schedule is anti-defection provisions for members of parliament and members of the state legislatures. Then 12th schedule is rural development, and 13th schedule is urban planning. So there were various committees constituent to the assembly. So the Union Powers Committee headed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the Committee on Fundamental Rights and Minorities, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Steering Committee, Dr. K. Munshi and Gopala Swami Iyengar and Biswanath Das, and Provincial Constitution Committee, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Committee on Union Constitution, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru ji, and the draft was prepared by Shri B.N. Rao, advisor to the Constituent Assembly. A 7-member commission chaired by Shri Krishna Swami Iyer was set up to examine the draft, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Minister of Law, from 15/8 for 1947 to 21/1950, piloted the draft constitution in the assembly. So this is the huge Herculean task behind the Indian Constitution. I mean, this is very important. We should know this, because we are looking into in future the micro level implementations of various other things. That is known as public policy. Okay. Procedure for amendment of the Indian Constitution is like this. So types of amendment: by simple majority in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha; by special majority in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha; by special ratification by half of the states; then by the president's consent; then simple majority above 50% in both houses, establishment of new states; then special majority 50% of absolute and 70% of present and voting; then special majority and consent of states, example election of president and its manner. As mentioned above, the same procedure is adopted to pass bills, laws in the respective state assemblies. The consent of the respective government is also taken in case of ordinances. Fine. The Indian Constitution has been amended 104 times. This is very important. Fine. The latest amendment became effective on 25th January 2020. The 104th amendment was extension of deadline for cessation for reservation of seats for members of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly by a period of 10 years. So you have one understanding that the Indian Constitution is amended 104 times. So in 2020, a total of 84 constitutional amendments were proposed and voted on in 29 states. Of the 84 proposed amendments, 69 were referred by state legislatures and 15 were initiated by citizens. Of the 84 amendments, 62, that is 73.8%, were approved. So fine, this gives you a baseline. It is like, backbone for what we would like to do in future. Now I go into the third presentation, the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so since ours is a federal format, annexure of all the princely states, then based on linguistic basis, states were formed, and as time passes by, based on what you call size of the states, further states were formed. So there has been a shift. So the Constitution, as already mentioned, is the pivotal force and guiding principle for the whole country. So there are many schedules I already mentioned. The 7th schedule mentions about some 3 lists: the union list, state list, and concurrent list. So the 7th schedule of the Constitution mentions union list has 100 subjects. So there are various subjects which the union would be deciding, and there are around 66 subjects which the state would be deciding, and there are some around 52 subjects with the concurrent list, that is both would be deciding, the state and the center. So some of those lists of the union are defense, army, international relations, ports, railways, highways, communication. Fine, you get you get a picture of what this center decides. The union decides, rather the best word. Rather than saying the center, we say union. Then the state list talks about public order, police, then public health and sanitation, then hospitals and dispensaries. Then betting and gambling is again a state issue. Then concurrent list, where both the center and the union is involved in deciding, is education, forest, trade unions, marriage, adoption, succession. Fine. So we come to know there are around hundreds of lists, rather subjects, which are dealt in various formats. Okay. Now I come to the basic structure doctrine of the Indian Constitution. So what holds? The basic structure is an Indian judicial principle that the Constitution of India has a certain basic features that cannot be altered or destroyed through amendments by the Parliament. Key among these are the basic features. The fundamental rights granted to individuals by the Constitution. The doctrine thus forms the basis of a limited power of the Indian Supreme Court. Then the Indian Supreme Court to review and strike down constitutional amendments enacted by the Parliament which conflict with or seek to alter this basic structure of the Constitution. So students, this structure should never be disturbed when we talk of promulgating, suggesting, doing research, study on any public policy. And I will tell you, the public policies, most of them are already mentioned in the lists, and there are powers that are derived by the virtue of the Constitution, by the state, by the center, and by both and the center and the states to talk on the subject. So we should be very careful when we formulate and study on the public policies. Okay. The basic features, principles was first expounded by Justice J.R. Mudholkar in his dissent in the case of Sajjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan. So now we follow a common law procedure wherein we have de facto cases which are known as landmark judgments as a pivotal point for furtherance of renderance of justice and any other judgments. Okay, so we should never forget that Indian judiciary system follows a common law procedure. So there is known as precedence that is considered. Okay, so of course the basic structure, as I told in the first paragraph, is very important. The basic structure doctrine applies only to constitutional amendments. It does not apply to ordinary acts of Parliament, which must conform to the entirety of the Constitution, not just to its basic structure. So this you should always and never forget. We should never disturb the basic structure. Fine. Now we come to the fifth one. Based on those four simple skimming knowledge, I come to the fifth one, which is known as public policies in India. Okay. So as Pradeep sir has already given a brief history, I would just go a bit deep into it in various clips, which is obvious to us. Every one of us know. So what I'm trying to read back or narrate is to reaffirm so that we don't swing over into wrong directions when we start dealing in public policies in detail, which were existing or which are yet to come up. So all the below narration is sourced from popular sites. Okay. So meaning public policy is the principled guide to action taken by administrative executive branches of the state with regard to a class of issues in a manner consistent with law and institutional customs. Fine. Very, very subjective type of definition. Okay. Elements of public policy are: a public policy is an action by a government that affects public welfare. It includes 1. Laws, 2. Rules and regulations, 3. Programs, welfare, Medicare, etc. and practices, Fourth one is specific policy changes. Fifth, at international, national, state, and local levels. So I'm putting things on the drawing board now, so that we don't swing again. I keep on repeating that whenever we do research, and especially on public policy, we should be very careful that we always have our figures, drawing boards, and all the instruments ready with us. Okay. So public policies in India basically are energy, waste management, retail, gender, education, health, water, environment, food, real estate, pharmaceutical, finance, then ICTs, information and communications technology. Okay. Then public policy is a course of action adopted and pursued by a government. Public, it comprises domain for human activity, which is regarded as requiring governmental intervention or common actions. Policy, a purposive course of action taken or adopted by those in power to pursue certain goals and objectives. Sometimes I would say this could be an ideology, or it could be a political ideology of a particular political party. Okay. The government's public policy role, public policy, a plan of action undertaken by government officials to achieve some broad purpose affecting a substantial segment of a nation's citizens. Very important, in fact. So a public policy basically has a microscopic effect. Okay. And it generally targets a set of population because of a problem. Okay. The public policy inputs shape a government's policy decisions and strategies to address problems. Public policy goals can be broad and high-minded, nor narrow and self-serving sometimes. Governments use public policy tools involving combinations of incentives and penalties to promote citizens to act in ways that achieve policy goals. Public policy effects are the outcomes arising from government regulations. Remember, public policy becomes effective only when it becomes a law. Okay. If not, it is left free to air. People may not follow it. So the very immediate effect is a legislation. Okay. So the role of public policy in governing businesses. Now I'm coming to a certain level. When new public policies are created, there are generally three things involved in the process: the problem, the player, and the policy. The problem is the issue that needs to be addressed. The player is the individual or group that has to be addressed. And the policy is the finalized course of action. Okay. Then the role, the rational model of public policy making process can be typically divided into three steps: agenda setting, option formulation, and implementation. Government officials or the agencies meet to discuss the problem at the end. Okay. Then what is economic policy? Economic policy is of vital importance that affects the business. It deals with the tools that the government uses to manage the economy or solve economic problems. Then social welfare policy, the nation that government is responsible for its citizens. Okay, welfare measures like health, education, housing, employment. Then government and public policy. A policy is typically designed as principle or rule to guide decisions and achieve rational outcomes. Fine. Classification of public policy. Policies may be classified into different ways. What you call disruptive policies. Disruptive policies extend goods and services to members of a system. That is distributive policies, as well as distributing the cost of goods services amongst the members of the system. Then examples include government policies that impact what you call spending for welfare, public education, highways, public safety, or a professional organization benefit plan. Then regulatory policies. Regulatory policies mandates limit the discretion of individuals and agencies, or otherwise compel certain types of behavior. Fine. Then constituent policies. It creates executive power, entitles or deals with laws. It also deals with the fiscal policy in some circumstances. Okay. Then types of public policy are fiscal policy, monetary policy, and social assistance. Okay. The government regulation of business regulation, the action of government to establish rules by which business or other groups must behave. Then types of regulation, economic regulations aim to modify the normal operation of free market and forces of supply and demand. This is very important for economic growth. Then types of regulations of economic policies, always create job opportunities. Fine. We come across these words known as MSME and all those things. Okay. Then types of regulations, social regulations aimed at such important social goals as protecting consumers and environment and providing workers with safe and healthy working conditions. Okay, these are overlappable labor laws. Then social regulations, example, Consumer Product Safety Commission sets strict rules for children's consumables, so consumer codes. Then need for business policy is obvious. Then if not, businesses don't grow. Economics, then it is a greasing point. Okay, then features of business policy: specific, clear, reliable, appropriate, simple and inclusive, flexible and stable. Fine. Corporate and public policy, planning and implementing public policy. So these are various lines and arteries and tributaries of the public policies. Okay, framing of public policy is created by legislation. This is one fact. It comprises of expert and panel to make final judgment. Then levels of public policy, the below is the public policy cycle. So agenda setting, problems are defined and issues are raised. Gatekeepers filter out those which will be given attention by either the executive or the legislative branches. Then second is formulation, analysis, and politics determines how the agenda that is translated into an authoritative decision. Then implementing the authorized policy must be administered and enforced by an agency of the government, and the agency must take instruction as stated in the policy. Fine. Then evaluation, the impact of the policy may be assessed. If goals exist, the effectiveness of the policy and its components can be determined. The feedback provided by evaluation is injected back to the agenda setting and frame new policies. Fine. The weakness in India's public policy making is excessive fragmentation in thinking and action. This is obvious. We have a huge intellectuality, so there is bound to be a lot of magnetism whenever a policy is being talked about. Then I would say the basic reason is, there is huge diversity in the country, cultural diversity, huge shift in the thought of towards the policy, because we have always the backing of the tradition and the past practices. So excessive overlap between policy making and implementation, lack of non-governmental inputs and informed debate, then lack of systematic analysis and integration prior to policy making. These are obviously the very strong weaknesses. Sometimes, policies are lying in ice for years together. By the time they come up, they will lose and they have to be redefined. So reforming institutional structures and processes, reduction in fragmentation, separation of policy making from implementation, and decentralizing the implementation of authority, widening and enhancing the knowledge base used in policy making, and promoting integration and synthesis. If 28 is speaking about weakness, 29 speaks about solutions. Okay, then I come to the famous policies that has created modern India. So public policy, as I've already defined, okay, and I have given you around 29 points, various points. So the public policies that changed India during the years 1947 to 2017, there are around 70 public policies. The first decade was about the controller of capital issues, that is 1947, Minimum Wages Act, Factories Act, the Development Finance Institution, then Banking Regulation Act, Planning Commissions, then Industries Development and Regulation, Indian Standards Institutes. This is very important to protect us from all the products that we use. Then nationalization of Air India, State Bank of India Act, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, Essential Commodities Act, then Industrial Policy Resolution, the nationalization of life insurance. Then the second decade was on important policies were institutes of technology, then establishment, Food Corporation of India, Agricultural Prices Commission, then special economic zones. Then the third decade was dominated by such wonderful policies like public provident fund, nationalization of banks, then Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, then nationalization of coal mines, then percentage margin, vertical rate of taxation, then nationalization of general insurance, then Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, Sikh Textile undertaking. Okay, so the fourth decade I will read skimmingly so that we can cover major portion. Then fourth decade was abolishment of rights to property. It's not an absolute right. Then nationalization, then privatization of Maruti Udyog, then Sikh Industrial Companies Act, then Consumer Protection Act. Then fifth decade was Prevention of Corruption Act, then National Highways Authority, then Statement on Industrial Policy. Then sixth decade was Tarapure Committees on Full Convertibility, then Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, then new normal in income tax rates. Then of course there are, say, national policy on airports, then Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority. Then the seventh decade was on Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, which is very, very important in the social sector. Then Foreign Direct Investments in Retail, Companies Act 2013, then Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, very, very important when government always wanted to acquire land. So this particular act was very important in dispensing a lot of benefits in form of remuneration from whom the lands have been taken away. Then Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. So similarly, Real Estate Regulatory Authority. Okay, so many other laws are there. So these are around 70 goods and services tax 2017. So if I take into the seventh decade, probably very familiar policies were Foreign Contribution Regulation, FDI in Retail, Companies Act, Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation Resettlement Act, then Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, then Bima Transactions Prohibition Amendment, then Arbitration and Conciliation Amendment, then Hydrocarbon Exploration and Licensing Policy, Aadhaar, then Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, then Demonetization, Real Estate Regulatory Development Authority Act, then Goods and Services. So probably we get a fair view. Then I have one very important thing about the amendments. As I told you, Indian Constitution, and there are various laws that created. So immediately we call that known as amending the Constitution. As already mentioned, the amendments are by passing the majority in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and in the assembly of the respective states, then consent of the governor or the president, so that the so-called public policy becomes a bill, then the bill becomes a law. Okay. So this is about the various amendments, list of huge, around 104 amendments for the richness of the country. And you would like to make most important thing, wealth, opportunities, gender equality, and all this to be implemented. Naturally, the constitution has to be amended. Okay, so two very important things is fundamental rights that are very important that we should never forget: right of equality, right of freedom, then right against exploitation, then right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights. These are the basic rights. Then saving of certain laws. Now, right to constitutional remedies, this is very important. This right is exercised by the citizen through the filing of writs, where the judicial authority like High Courts and Supreme Court pass the judgments, okay, and orders over in case your constitutional rights are infringed. Okay, so this is very important. So whenever we talk about public policies, we should never forget these two pivotal things. And fundamental duties are fundamental duties to abide by the constitution, then to cherish and follow the noble ideals. Okay, so we have so many duties also to perform, being citizens. Okay, to safeguard public property. Okay, then to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. Fine. Right. Now I come to a very important point, which is known as writs. See, writ, the Indian Constitution empowers the Supreme Court to issue writs for enforcement of any of fundamental rights conferred by Part 3 of the Indian Constitution under Article 32 and 226 Supreme Court. Okay. So thus the power to issue writs, primarily a provision made to make available to right to constitutional remedies. See, this is the type of writs that a citizen has when the fundamental rights are infringed upon. Okay, so I have a simple table, very small table to elaborate on that. So the types of writs are habeas corpus, mandamus, cesure, then prohibition, quo warranto. So the meaning is, in habeas corpus, you may have the body to release a person who has been detained unlawfully, whether in prison or in private custody. So we have these 4 writs. So these writs you should use as guidelines. Okay, mandamus, where the powers are
I think we lost Ramarao-ji.
overtaken, where you perform less than what you are allowed, what you are supposed to do, don't perform, then powers are super, sir. Yes, sir. You are able to hear, sir?
Yeah, I am able to hear you.
So I'm almost winding up. Yeah, in 5 minutes I'll be winding up the last 2 things. So really important, and public interest, which is the mouth. So it's a very important weapon. So a public interest litigation is also known as PLI, is a form of litigation that is filed to safeguard or enforce public interest. Please remember, we are talking about public policies. So public policy is basically based on a problem. So problem can be highlighted by one of a very important weapon, which is known as PIL. So PIL was introduced by Justice P.N. Bhagwati. So there are prominent PILs. For example, in Delhi, when CNG was implemented and Ganga water cleaning was done. So these are all prominent PILs. I have around 5 PILs mentioned here. So I won't highlight, it will consume time. But PIL is a very important weapon in addressing a problem. Okay. So you draw the attention of the judiciary system. So the 4th pillar of the Indian democracy is freedom of speech. So this is very important. So we should remember a lot has been spoken about, and the latest being the social media, WhatsApp, Facebook. All these are another formats of freedom of expression of speech. But the thing is, they are intermediaries, so there are a lot of regulations. So when a public policy is being talked about or progressively thought about, the media is the press, written format or oral expression. So we have to be very careful that freedom is not absolute. So I have a simple write-up which is the 4th pillar, as I mentioned in the first. The 3 pillars were legislation, executive, and judiciary. The 4th is freedom of expression. Okay, the press basically. Okay, so I have the last 2 very important thing. Public policy is converted into laws, and now again there is dynamism. So the new set of 44 labor laws under categories. So this is dynamic change. So we have wage code, social security code, occupational safety and working conditions code, industrial relations code. Of late, the government, this is news for the past 3 days that is running around. The law ministry has picked up 52 laws, 52 acts for review. Okay, so again, this is known as dynamism of public policy coming through the governance point of view by reviewing the laws. So probably simplifying things. The things that some of the laws have become redundant and absolute, then duplication. Then some of the offences were too much into criminal, and the courts were overclogged with the cases. Probably some of those offences could have been converted into civil offences. So I have a typical example of Tamil Nadu coming up with some revolutionary concepts. For example, appointing temple pujaris from other communities. So this is a public policy converting into a law. There is always a controversy, but there is a reason behind it. Then all religious entities like temples have to report regarding their assets and other things to the government, and they have to upload things on the websites. So we come to know this is to avoid mischief. Of late, this is again the repercussion of a public outcry policy, then coming into a law. Then the government of Tamil Nadu has come out with taking care of orphans, and by keeping a deposit of 5 lakhs per orphan and 3,000 rupees was sustenance to anybody who adopts them, including relatives. Similarly, a similar scheme is taken care of by the central government. So we have this dynamism. If you look into each state government, they are coming out with wonderful innovative public policies, again to take care of the welfare of the citizens. So we have latest policies at Ayushman, then Swachh Bharat, Make in India, Stand Up India, then PMJDY, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan, then PMUY, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwal Yojana, then Digital India, then Pradhan Mantri, then Suraksha Atal Pension, then Skill India, then Beti Bachao, Beti, these are the very, very important public policies, almost becoming implementable on through the laws. Okay, even right to education is a public outcry, and it has become a law by itself. Education to everybody. So, in conclusion, I would say that was my micro level. So there is so much to do at micro level. So in brief, I'll tell you there are 1,248 laws in the country as on January 2017. Since there are central and state laws, enumerating them and giving them exact list is difficult. But some laws are in vogue, some are redundant and dormant. So I suggest you youngsters as interns do intensive study and research about various public policies and subsequent laws of all the states in India. Evolve new and practical policies and solutions. After all, we all are the stakeholders. Your effort and recommendations will definitely have an impact. So don't take it as a lame and we are all there to help you in creating a wonderful public policy. And of course, I will tell you something extra. The right will be yours only. You will be the author of that. So this selfless work should not be restricted only to the present internship. Fine. It should be an ongoing activity. So wishing all of you good luck and happy learning and enriching internship. So that's about in a very fast, tsunami style from my side. Pradeep sir, I am done. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ramaraoji. It was actually wonderful the way you presented. Request interns, please make a note of certain things which he have presented, because these questions will be the set of quiz when you are into the tournament. So do listen and do give a regard those pointers which he is actually pointing, or any of the mentor is pointing. Now I request Arpita to proceed for the session.
Thanks, Pradeep ji. Well, we raise our thanks in gratitude to Advocate Ramarao ji for enriching us with such a macro level role of legislation. And now I would request my IT team to kindly present a certificate of gratitude to him.
Thank you, Ramarao ji, for being with us for today. I know you will be there for 3 more days with us. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'm sure by now you might have got a little clarity on what's the meaning of public policy. Well, public policy can be generally defined as a system of law, regulatory measures, courses of action, and finding especially priorities concerning to such topics promulgated by government entity and its representatives. Well, किसी ने खूब कहा है, ना थके कभी पैर, ना कभी हिम्मत हारी है, जज्बा है परिवर्तन का जिंदगी में, इसलिए सफर जारी है। मन सभी के पास होता है, मगर मनोबल कुछ लोगों के पास ही होता है। और आइए इसी के साथ मैं इनवाइट करना चाहूंगी हमारे अगले स्पीकर को, अजय प्रकाश जी को, जो कि प्रेसिडेंट हैं डीप वेलफेयर फाउंडेशन के। अजय जी, स्वागत है आपका ANP प्लेटफॉर्म पर।
हेलो,
हाँ,
आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ जी, आपकी आवाज
आपको सुन पा रहे हैं, बोले सर।
स्वागत है आप सभी का कि आप सभी ने समय निकालकर इतना खूबसूरत खर्च हम करते हैं। कि ये 1.5 महीने का कार्य आज की टीम राजीव गांधी यूनिवर्सिटी की टीम के साथ मिलकर के शुरू किया गया है, जिसमें पेट्रोलियम यूनिवर्सिटी के बच्चे प्रतिभागी होंगे। 1.5 महीने तक पब्लिक पॉलिसी और अन्य बिंदुओं पर, सोशल डेवलपमेंट पर चर्चा की जाएगी। इसके लिए इस कोरोना काल में बड़ी दिक्कत पेट्रोलियम यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ हमारी वार्ता चल रही है। इन बच्चों को आपके यहाँ समर वेकेशन में ट्रेनिंग के इंटर्नशिप के लिए भेजना जाए था, लेकिन जैसे ही कोरोना बढ़ गया, अब खुद प्रभावित हुए कोरोना में। प्रदीप जी भी पारिवारिक तौर पर प्रभावित हुए। इसको देखते हुए प्रोग्राम को टाला गया। उम्मीद नहीं थी कि यह कार्यक्रम आगे बढ़ेगा। फिर अब और प्रदीप जी की बात हुई कि नहीं, इसको सेंटर पर बुला के 30 बच्चे लखनऊ सेंटर पे जाएंगे। आत्मनिर्भर भारत के टी बच्चे, लेकिन कोरोना के दुष्ट है और आज इसकी शुरुआत आप सबके द्वारा बढ़े। अगले 1.5 महीने सफल रूप से प्रदीप जी, अर्पिता जी और किया जाएगा और बच्चे इससे लाभान्वित होंगे। बीच बीच में और भी विशेषज्ञ भी हुई है अध्यापकों से, जो इस विषय में काफी अनुभव रखते हैं। तो हमारी कोशिश है कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा लाभ लिया। इसी के साथ में अभिनंदन करते हुए धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद।
थैंक्स।
अर्पिता जी, कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाएं प्लीज।
Thanks, Ajay ji. Well, now we are moving to our second session, and now I would like to present the success and impediments case studies in public and an initiation for the prevention of blindness, a non-profit society operating 200 bed Rohutki Hospital and has come out to 7 nearby district with a target population of around 3 million. Mr. Rai has 11 years of work experience and extensive expertise in health and hospital specific project management, including monitoring and evaluation of public health programs in India. Prior joining, they served in the RTI International as the Program Officer for Research and Evaluation for Action in Child Health Projects in Uttar Pradesh and for coverage evaluation of National Deworming Day in Himachal Pradesh and Chandigarh. Well, earlier, he also served as the Project Officer in Rajasthan for an in-gender health family planning project. Prior to Rajasthan experience, he was working in a left-wing extremist affected district Simdega, Jharkhand for NMHCH plus implementation. As the project officer for administrating the Indian Public Health Standard in the National Rural Health Mission, Gujarat, he led and oversaw quality of care service at public health facilities and was instrumental in strengthening health facilities in the state. He also served as member of several core committees at the policy level for developing policies and guidelines about care program transportation, human resource management system, and public-private partnership models in Gujarat. Well, as far as academic qualification is concerned, he's a graduate in business administration from Billia Institute of Technology. Mr. Rao, postgraduate in health and hospital management for Institute of Health Management Research. Jaipur, and has a certificate in project management from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. His interest in public policy led him to earn another post-graduation in public administration and policy from Indira Gandhi National Open University. Well, now it's my proud privilege to invite Mr. Animesh Rai for this session. Over to you, Mr. Rai.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Pritaji, and everyone at Atmanirbhar Bharat, and welcome students of UPES. And it's really an honor and privilege both to be a mentor and to share whatever we have experienced in terms of policy and practices in India. And I would like it to be more interactive, but if anyone wants to say anything during the presentation, please unmute yourself and please speak up, because I want it a more interactive way rather than I'm giving like an extempore. So, so is English fine with everyone, or should I use the mixed language? English.
One thing is there I need to say. Animesh, please switch on your video if possible, so that we can be more interactive then.
Oh, sure. I just forgot to switch it on. Yeah, can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So just I would request IT team to share the presentation, or if I can share it here.
You can.
Okay, just a sec.
There is something hidden which Animesh is going to speak about. We all are actually were into that situation. The case study was such.
So everyone is ready now?
Of course, I am very much eager actually to hear.
Yeah, I think this is the topic. I mean, everyone has experienced recently, and that's why we have selected this particular topic. Why? Because there were so many success and impediments of public policy. But since there have been a lot of policies which have been termed as a successful, but some policies which are success or failure is still a debatable, and still I mean, people debate on their facts, sometimes on the factuals. So that's why we have took one such case here, and it's very interesting. And after so many years, I mean, let's see what team or student comes up. And I hope that if anyone in this team wing tournament can take this topic up and dig deeper in terms of policy perspective, I will say. So I think that will be very, very, very beneficial to that group of students or a particular student if someone takes this topic up in the future. So, well, going forward, I'm not taking any success or impediments case study to be very blunt and to be very technically correct in this presentation. So I am presenting a case of a policy, which I mean, let's see how it is. Is it a success, or is it a failure, or is it a mix of both? I don't know. I would not like to say anything right now. Let's see what everyone thinks. Let's see what everyone have heard. So before commenting on any policy, especially if it's related to a public policy domain, so we should keep few things in mind that is very, very important, because every review is definitely a retrospective one. There are very few policies which are not retrospective, but that is not we call a review. That is all we call that policies expected outcome, expected impact. That is all become expected now. So retrospective is like we have to review it in a back date, whatever has happened. See, something which we cannot change. One has to be very, very neutral. So as a students of policy, as a professional of policy, when there are very many veterans in the working the policy space here, so despite their personal beliefs, despite their personal religious sentiments, despite their personal political motivations and affiliations, when they be a policy reviewer, or when they become a policy person, they are damn very, very neutral person at all. I mean, their personal belief, their personal grudges, everything they keep aside, and then we start reviewing any policy. And every policy review is a very subjective in nature. Why I'm saying that, and that too in a country like India, or even in other countries too, because policy tries to cover the maximum of the thing, maximum of the people, maximum of the benefits, but it doesn't complete, or it cannot cover 100% actually. So that's why those who have got the benefit of Manrega, they will praise about the Manrega. Those who have not got the benefit of Manrega, or those who don't qualify but on the margin line of to fall in the category of Manrega beneficiaries, for example, so they will say that, oh, Manrega is not a good scheme because that doesn't give any benefit to them. So it is all subjective in nature. So we cannot say that which policy is completed, I mean, have 100% impact on it. It is just like a war. I mean, even if you win a state, even if you win a country, I mean, you cannot win heart of all the people residing over there. So that's how the policy comes when it comes to the review. So all of you, those who are trying to practice it in next 2 months and beyond that also, always keep these things in mind, that it has to be retrospective. You have to be very neutral when it comes to the policy review. And third is like, it has to be a very subjective in nature. We don't fight, we argue. Definitely we can feel discontented, we can feel, I mean, anguished, but the nature of the policy review is completely subjective. And the most important thing, apart from keeping things in mind, is any review, be it policy or anything else, must not be used to defame anyone or any community or any particular political party or anything. It is not meant to defame anything. It is not meant to demoralize people who were involved in the policy making or even in the execution of that policy. And third and last, it must not discourage anyone, neither you nor the people who are involved in the policy, or who are like in the favor of that policy, or who are not in favor of that policy. So it should not discourage, defame, or demoralize. If we are somehow, while reviewing, coming to any one of the D, then we are not reviewing it correctly. So always keep in mind, whatever we do in life or whenever we review or anything, we must avoid these 3 Ds. So if we avoid these 3 Ds, I mean, we are on a right track. We can say that, okay, we are on a right track. So, okay, it's time to move further. So how many of you remember year 2016? You can comment in the chat box if you have any memory of year 2016. Definitely not related to your birthdays and anniversaries. So how many of you have can recall something happened in 2016? Okay, in the month of November. Don't Google it, please. Don't Google it right now. So anything happened?
I can see on the chat box, Siani has referred something. Siani,
okay, yeah. So could you please say? I mean, could you please write what is that? What has happened on 8th of November 2016? Anyone else? I mean, even if, okay, yeah, right, correct, Shani. I mean,
I think Googling is going on.
Okay. Okay, I mean, need not to Google it. Yes, definitely. So today's topic is our topic for today. I will say it's demonetization. I mean, it's a good picture which I found over internet. So okay. So hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so demonetization is the topic of today's case study, which we have selected collectively. And why we have selected it, like, first, it is still a debatable issue. Second, most of the participants and faculty, I mean, mentors can really relate to it because it's really very recent. If anything related to 1991 or 1978 policy, if I'll say it becomes so theoretical that, okay, something would have happened. Even I was not born in 1978. So something like that. So, I mean, it will be very difficult to relate, but I think demonetization is something which most of us can relate. Most of us can relate still. So why I'm using most of us students, because no policy covers 100%. So that's why I'm not saying that all of us must be relating to demonetization, but yes, definitely most of us must be relating to the demonetization. So let's come to the point. What was the objective? So I think you might not have read about the policy framework, but going forward, whenever you will be under mentorship with anyone, so whenever we draft a policy, there is some objective to it, attached to it, because without objective, policy is not going to help actually. So there were 3 core objectives of the demonetization. But first was to curb black money. Second was to curb the circulation of fake currency in India. And third was to create a cashless economy. Okay, so basically there was few more, but if we club all those objectives into some group or segment, then it falls into all these 3 categories only. There were no any fourth objective as of now on paper, as of now on technical grounds. Okay, in this platform, one can say that there can be there is also a political objective. Maybe that can be correct, that cannot be correct, because after the demonetization in next 6 months there were some elections and all. But as on paper, as a policy document, once we review, then there were only these 3 objectives. Okay, now whenever we review a policy, or whenever we review any document, we must understand that it has to be very objective. And if something, any activity, if any process is not achieving its objective, then only we can review it. Okay, is it achieving its objective or not? So similarly, like your university exams or your class 10th or class 12th examinations, board examinations. So whatever you have done, I mean, you might have gone to the best of the best teachers for the tuitions. You might have joined best of the best classes, coaching classes in your city or maybe online. But if we, how people will actually judge, or how a selector will judge you actually is like, what was the percentage of your class 10? What was the percentage of your class 12th examination? Or what will be your percentage in your graduation? So that's how a selector, that's how a campus placement agency generally considers. Okay, if you are a first divisioner in class 10, class 12, in graduation also, then you can sit for the so and so placement agency or so and so company. So that's how they just assess you on their own objectives. So if however hard work you have done, however hard you have studied, whole night, whole day, that doesn't matter if that objective means your percentage is not good in your examination. So that same thing works with the policy review as well. So if we see that if demonetization has achieved its objectives or not. If it has achieved, definitely it can be considered as a good policy. It can be considered, yes, it has achieved most of its objectives. If it has not achieved any of the objectives or very few, then we can term it as that, okay, this policy was flawed at the planning level, or it has not been executed well, or this was a completely failure or a flop policy. Let's see if we can call it still a flop or not, or if we can still call it a success or not. So, so coming to the first objective, what was the expectation of the government, and what is the reality right now? So coming to the black money. So what has actually conceptualized this idea, which I will relate it to the need assessment. So where it went a bit wrong, or where it actually missed the right track, missed the right points, is how government, how think tanks, how people at the policy level actually missed some of the things while conducting any need assessment, where somewhere it must be, you can say that they must have hypothesized something, that okay, the black money must be somewhere around 3 to 4 lakh crore in India, and they were thinking like, if we can, 500 and 1000 rupees notes can be pulled off from the system. We just pull the plug, and then that money will be like zero. Zero for anyone. It's just like not more than a piece of a paper. But what has happened, that this expectation, this assumption came drastically at a very, very minimal level, when according to the Reserve Bank of India, when they said later on that, okay, almost 99% to be correct, it was 98.94%. So around 99% we can say roughly. These many money was actually came to the banking system. It got, deposited with the banking system of India through various banks, and then again reconfirmed by the Reserve Bank of India. So you can say that, just 0.10 lakh crores of notes were not, redeposited to the banks. So that is something which actually shook, because we were expecting that, or the government was expecting that this much of black money will be out of circulation or will be able to curb. But with the reality, we can say that I think there was not much black money in the market, or even if there was a black money in the market, that got through a system of whatever we can say, government system or the banking system, that much of money was able to push back to the system in a very correct way. So on technical grounds, expectation versus reality was very, very different. Was very, very different actually. Similar thing happened with circulation of fake currency as well. So the second objective, if you remember my previous slide, it was like government of India thought that it will reduce the circulation of fake currency in that country. Okay, but reality is something very different actually right now. And you can see that, in 2016 and 17, in the financial year when this demonetization came into effect, in that year, the government of India and the government agencies have seized 6.32 lakh counterfeit notes. But if we come to the 2020, if you can see the right hand side bottom graph in the picture, in the slide, you can see that one can say that, okay, this is the some declining trend which we can see. Definitely you can say that, okay, from 2,40,000 pieces of notes to 1,70,000 notes, it is a bit declining. But overall, if we talk about after demonetization, that 18.87 lakh counterfeit pieces of notes were seized, and still the government decided to discontinue 500 and 1,000 old notes and started 500 new notes and 2,000 rupees new notes. But the highest notes found in the fake circulation is of rupees 100, and this graph is of rupees 100 note. This graph is not of rupees 500 and 2,000 note. So you can see somehow the policy perspective, the circulation of fake currency, the address was not got actually solved through this demonetization at all. So we'll see in the coming slides what can be done or what has happened. So there was another thing in the public policy in the demonetization, that okay, it will boost up the digital payments, or what we call is a cashless economy. Yes, they have thought of, and definitely if you can look at the graph, it shows a steep curve, that to an increasing one. So right from 2015-16 to 19-20, the digital payments, all type of digital payments, which considers UPI payments, which considers the NEFT, IMPS, all these have increased by 387%. This is something humongous. This is something really, really big. 387% increase in 5 years is something commendable, definitely. But the catch here is cash transactions prevails too. So it's not like definitely digital payment have increased, but definitely cashless economy, we have not been able to achieve in 5 years. So those who are in the urban setting or have a very good internet access, they might feel like, okay, I do lots of transactions over some of the phone-based application like the PhonePe, Paytm, or Google Pay these days, and some more additionally, definitely. But still, in the sector where that is called cash sensitive sector, where the cash is only thing which you pay, especially in the rural areas or even in the urban areas, where payment through cash is the only thing, or they actually promote to have a transactions in cash. So that has also increased. So I was reading a report while developing this presentation, that the RBI has said that, I mean, the printing of currency notes got increased by 40%. So before demonetization, when they were printing currencies, if it was just 100 notes in a year, and now they are printing 140 notes in a year. So I mean, that has also got increased somehow. So it also shows that, okay, when our currency transaction, our cash transactions are also, I mean, high up. But definitely in terms of digital payments, I mean, nothing like it. We are far ahead. We are far ahead than many other countries, many other developing countries, and some of the developed countries as well, in terms of increase in the percentage of digital payments. So now all the three objectives, I mean, I put it a very black and white, that what was the expectation and what is the reality. And now everything comes at a cost. So if someone has studied economy, or even if not, I mean, there is a quote in economics which we call that there's no free lunch in the economy. So nothing is free. So everyone comes at a cost. So apart from a lot of agony, pain, and anguish among common people, I mean, some of us might have felt the same. I mean, making a long queue in the summer or in the winters, and for some money, for taking out some money. Even the informal sector, where there is a lot of cash sensitive transactions happening, especially the daily wages, and lot of supply chain issue got disrupted in India. Definitely that was something which still people are calculating, and that calculation comes at some level of expectation or some level of assumptions as well. But what is not on the basis of assumption is the RBI's data. You can see that there was a huge cost implications on printing the new currency notes in the year or after the demonetization and the subsequent years, which comes to around 13,000 crore. I mean, 12,877 to be precise. And before that, the cost was only 3,421 crores. In 15-16, it was just 3,421 crore for printing currency notes. And this is a huge cost implication, around 264%. The way we were referring to the last slide of digital payments, where increase was more than 350%, here also the increase is huge, among us more than 250%. And apart from the printing currency notes, there are a lot of remittance which happened among the banking sector, and that has also costed a lot. From 109 crores in 2015-16, it costed India around 262 crores in 2 financial years, in 16-17 and 17-18. So this cost also gone up because whenever there is a new currency, definitely there is a lot of remittance of currency happens, and that too with a lot of vigilance and everything happens. So that was something, I mean, obvious. It is something very obvious that if you are minting new currency notes and printing it and circulating it across all the banks across the country like India, which is still a huge kind of a continent, then these costs are like has to happen. So if you see that, there have been a lot of cost involved in pulling off these old currency notes. Then there have been a lot of costs which we cannot actually calculate, because that was at a level of very personal cost. That is like a pain, which I say that anguish, or you are feeling disturbed that what will happen. There was a lot of uncertainty. So all these things you cannot actually quantify at all at some scale somehow. So if we add all these, it became a very, very costly affair. It became a very cost sensitive affair in terms of finance, I'll say. So coming to the last slide, food for thoughts for everyone, especially for the students. So as we can see that some of the objectives were not achieved completely, or all, even though their intention was good, we consider that intention of the government was good, but still the policy was not able to achieve all of its objective. So I mean, you dig deeper and just let us know that does demonetization achieve its objectives or not? And to curb black money and fake currency, do you personally think that desired approach should be the demonetization or something else, along with the law enforcement agencies and other government agencies? And one thing which most of the policymakers still argue and claim that digital payments, this would not have been happened if demonetization have not happened. So I'm not sure, and I would like to know your thoughts as well, that during this Wing tournament, that okay, definitely this digital payments have took up and is going very well, definitely with more than 350% increase in last 5 years. It has achieved something, but could not have it been achieved without a demonetization? Or all the countries, those who have achieved digital payments rapidly and they are gradually going for a near cashless economy, have they done with demonetization or have they done without demonetization? What kind of infra is required? I mean, these are some topics which as a student, as a policy practitioner, we should think of, we should dig deeper. And last two questions, the burning one, which we still figure out, we still feel the heat whenever we discuss among the policymakers, and some critique that does a policy considered fail if it has not been able to achieve its objectives, and does it a policy considered success if it has been able to achieve all of its objectives? So even if it has achieved, there are many policies which have achieved all of its objectives, but people call it it is failed, it's useless. Just like Manrega, I have started with the Manrega, and there are some policies which have failed considerably, at least on paper and in all the calculations in terms of maths. But still people claim it that it is a success, even if it was not a success, but still we cannot term it as a failed policy. What are your thoughts? So I would like to close here with food for thoughts, and looking forward to your questions if you have any, or Pradeep or anyone would like to add something on the demonetization, or anyone of you. You guys are most welcome to add something or to comment or to critique upon.
Yeah,
over to you.
Thanks, Aningazji. It was good to actually discuss how this demonetization happens and how the story goes on. The prime objective, there was a 3 prime objectives, which however it's been narrated the way we have planned, I must say. For all the team weaving tournament interns, I must say, here in this particular policy, if you can think for, if you can actually go and revise what exactly was the objectives and what was that, for actually finding out or to address this particular objective, we have to go for a need assessment. And somewhere we have failed out that our demographic difference is something which is actually always a calculated. We have a bigger picture that there are 500 and 1000 currency notes, and we failed into actually look into that 100 rupees currency note, right, which is more actually in circulation on the ground, within the hands of the people. First thing. Secondly, if I talk about digital currency, if I talk about the digital literacy, if I talk about the digital health system, we required ecosystem, we required an infrastructure for that. And our urban system is having an infrastructure on those, not the rural. And higher end of these monies, which is in circulation, either of the MSMEs or with marginalized people or the liberal people or the unorganized sector, they are with this 100 rupees note or below 100 rupees note, firstly, and they are without this IT infrastructure. So whenever we decide on to actually make a framework or the objective of any of the policy, please do the need assessment thoroughly. Because if you are trying to actually address some of the problem, I must say, whatever the thing I have actually addressed in the initial way, are you trying to address the problem, or you are trying to actually just manage the damage? That is how the things are. You need to think for whether you are trying to manage the damage or you are trying to actually eradicate the problem. And as for those things, you have to address. So rest, Nitesh is also there and Ramarao is also there. I must say they might be actually speaking on this, and Yes is also there. So you all can actually speak on these things. What is your assumption actually? Whenever we're trying to go or actually frame out any of the policy, what is the best way actually out to frame out that particular policy? Nitesh, can you come in and can you pitch something on this? You are on mute, Nitesh.
Yeah, sure. Hello everyone, good evening. I would like to add like various aspects in public policy framing, like PFATS approach we will follow in the designing of any policies. Like it should be political acceptable, socially acceptable, and financially viable. In our and is a environment conservation, like sustainable economy. So we should also consider the environmental aspects, if it is so, and also legally acceptable. So these kind of various aspects which we can include in the policy framing based on the various circumstances and environment. So thank you. It's just a brief introduction. I have added it.
Okay, Ramarao, your suggestion on that, being a legal person, how exactly this policy particularly, how you judge this policy,
Sir,
demonetization?
Which demonetization, sir? I will tell you one demonetization policy. It's an argument, sir. दोनों तरफ से भी, this side, that side, there is heavy. जिनको फायदा नहीं हो गया, दिमाग खराब हो गया. लेकिन I will tell you one important point. A very important point. Some of my friends made hay, gathered hay during this time. They purchased flats at lowest price. Can you believe the real estate was totally having money crunch and इतने कम भाव में उनको flats मिला है? It is unbelievable in fact. कम से कम 20-30 लाख कम में खरीदा उन्होंने flats. So at that time I missed that opportunity. So this is what a policy, there is heavy disadvantage, but if you see very microscopically, I always tell you, look into that without having qualms, probably there is a great advantage. See, no policy basically is bad. Probably the best of it cannot be taken up very immediately. But there are reasons for creating that policy. If you go to that, probably you can take the advantage of it. And I would tell you, all the students, if you take up a policy, go back to the previous experiences of respective states. We are rich in diversity. Each state has a different experience. Okay. And next, you can, the way our own constitution has been borrowed principles. You can always take experience of other countries so that you stay in it. It is a fantastic activity into policy making, past, present, or future.
Okay. I need to add one story behind this demonetization. When demonetization was being implemented by Government of India, I was sitting in the office of very known friend actually. All of the people, those who are in Lucknow, they know him very well. Tiwari Tutorial. I was sitting in his office, and the news comes in somewhere around 7:30 or 8 o'clock that demonetization is been regulated, and from tomorrow onwards, there will not be any new currency. This old currency will be working. You know, I just rolled down my window. I saw what is actually happening out of that institute. That institute was very much nearby to the petrol bank, and in that petrol bank, it is in Gomti Nagar, and you can imagine thousands of people were struggling not for the currency, they were struggling for the petrol, because the moment they don't have the money, they cannot go for take out their vehicles with the petrol. for the petrol. So all the vehicles around the Lucknow, they were actually struggling for the petrol pump. No one was worried about what will be the value of this money, whichever is there in the pocket. All were second story. Out of this demonetization, if you happen to see, or some of the fellow across this platform also, they might be knowing, when Government of India has rolled out this demonetization, there was an exercise carried out by Government of India to roll out the new currencies, and the new currencies are having the different sides. And you know where we were actually struck up? We were struck up of because the machine, the ATM machine, that was not taking the complete note, the new note actually. The size of the ATM machines was differ. And that difference, because of that difference, and then the designing of the machine took 1 month, the complete one it took. So once we formulate any policy, we have to think for how we are going to implement it in a very faster way. Because see, whenever the policy rolls out, it directly or indirectly affects the commoners. And people were struggling on queues, and our country was struggling, our engineers were struggling to make that particular design of the ATM. Some way we are actually out of the thought that this will happen. But for you people, those who are interns here, whenever you are actually designing any of the solution, please think twice or thrice whether this solution is going to be implemented or not, whether there is such hindrance or not, what all the stakeholders, who all are the beneficiaries, who all are going to be affected by that. Once you design those things, once you align those things, then you roll out any of the solution. I know the problem is there and problem is to be addressed by the solution, but solution has to be actually for the all. You need to think
realistic.
Be very realistic on those things. Be very realistic to find out the need. We are already actually in the crunch of data validation. Everywhere the same data is rolling out. If you take out any of the places, we are fighting hard for the data validation, and we are only the people, those who are working on that, to make up any of the data. So more or less, whenever you are going for any of the policy, whenever you are designing any of the solution, think in a bigger picture. Think for the commoners also, and whatever the solutions are there, they are given to you. There are subsets of solutions which can be actually rolled out. So think for those solutions also. Not taking much time. Thank you. Any other queries or any other suggestions from across these people, those who are listening to us?
Sir, the
Please raise your hand or
excellent. Demonetization presentation was very excellent and very analytic actually. It was like a procedure other students should follow now. The same pathway they can use.
Yeah. It's giving the impact. See, the presentation has taken the note of the data.
Yes.
I'm again saying the data plays the role on decision making. So whenever you try to present your thing, whenever you try to analyze, go for the data validation twice. Once you validate your data, you can pitch in a very better way. So thanks to Animesh ji. I request my IT team to actually present a note of gratitude to our speaker, Mr. Animesh ji. And with that, we can conclude the session for the day. In the weekends, I, Advocate Ramarao ji, and again Animesh ji, we three will take some of the sessions on the framework of public policy. Stay happy, stay good with your well-being, with your thoughts, and keep on thinking about the public policy, what the public policy is and why the policy is. I request IT team to please present the gratitude certificate. Thank you, Animesh ji. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for supporting our interns to learn on those demonetization. We keep in touch with you. because we have 2 or 3 more sessions with you.
Sure.
I'm
Thank you
busy.
so
Thank
much.
you.
It's a privilege to be part of the Team Wing tournament. Definitely.
So thank you. Now I request Arpita ji to proceed for the closing note. If anyone is having any doubt, anyone is having any suggestions, please let us know. Here also on the WhatsApp also, we have the sessions going on. And of course, from Monday onwards, we will be having the assignments too for all the interns. For all the 3 universities, we will be having it, this thing assignments. So you can contact me and Nitish for that. Thank you. Arpita ji, over to you.
Thanks, Pradeep ji, and thanks, Mr. Animesh. It was really a very wonderful presentation at the end of the day, and a very, very soulful kind of a thing. We all connect on the same page with this kind of a policy. And to my all dear participants, I would like to tell you one thing. See, I would also appreciate you, apart from the analysis, share your story and your experiences regarding with it, because then it will also make you connected with the policy. Data, analysis, everything, but I would request add on that if you can share. I'm sure demonetization is a subject where everyone has their story to share about. If you ask me as a layperson, I think the most affected with this policy were the household women, to be honest, because the money what they have kept, without acknowledging their husbands, they were the most, sufferer on that front. So I'm sure like this, everyone will have their own specific stories and, things to share about. I will love to listen and hear about that too also with all our participants later. Well, as I say, demonetization, if you ask me, it's like everything needs a makeover in that way. So demonetization, can change the look of the currency, but not the human tendency at the end of the day. And I would like to end this session with a lovely poem, which is based on demonetization. So here it is. After you left, I got back what was theft. After you left, I was free from my debt. After you left, I can't keep any secret. After you left, 500 and 1,000 notes got colorful. After you left, realization of worth of demonetization, modification increases than corruption. A beam of light provides illumination. With that short, I would like to end up this session. See you in yet another session. Till then, goodbye. Take care. Keep evolving and keep exploring.
I request all to switch on the video so that we can take the pics for the day. Those who can actually, because it is IT team, please make a note that you can have a pics around for all the slides. Switch on your videos so that we can have. I can see very few people are switching on their videos. Why you people are feeling so shy to switch on the videos?
They are tensed.
There was one session going on with I think Madam Swarup sir was there on the session. He keeps on reminding us, if you people are not switching on your video, I will not start my session. Being a IAS, being a senior fraternity,
yes, he was very adamant on that.
If you cannot come on, if you cannot switch on your videos, then you cannot do anything in your life. So blunt he was.
We should be happy for what we are.
Thanks to all interns. Thank to my team members. Thank to mentors. And thank you to all colleges, those who have participated in this. We are switching us
and all
We
dear
are signing
participants.
it off. Thank you. Thank you for
Lovely
being here.
evening. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.